The mainstream media is finally doing some real reporting on Benghazi, and we're going to show you the hits and, of course, the misses. I'm Steve Green. This is Trifecta, and with me, of course, because it just wouldn't be Trifecta without them, Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. Gents, a dam has broken above Benghazi, and it all started with Congressman Darrell Iss's amazing hearings last week. I'm sure you watched those, but that's last week's news. This week's news is that a flood of stories and op-ed pieces came out everywhere over the weekend because nobody can ignore Benghazi for one moment longer. Well, maybe not nobody. Well, let's look at the spin. My favorite, Maureen Dowd. I can't believe I just called Maureen Dowd my favorite. At the New York Times, on Sunday, Dowd came out swinging. She said, and this is a quote, the administration's behavior before and during the attack in Benghazi in which 4 Americans died was unworthy of the greatest power on earth. Unworthy, Bill, and that, believe it or not, was one of the nicer things she said. Are you experiencing maybe a little schadenfreude now that Dowd has been forced to admit what we knew months ago?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. There's none of that schadenfreude in this Benghazi story for anybody anywhere. It's an unmitigated catastrophe. It's a national disgrace. And obviously the ambassador's dead, the other fellow's dead, and those 2 SEALs are dead, and there's nothing to be gloating about or nothing to be happy about that. The only thing I think I can say is that I have finally, for the first time in 5 years, gotten the sense across the board that not only is the Benghazi story starting to get some traction, but that the press, after years, is beginning to realize that we're not a bunch of lunatics running around with our hair on fire when we say that this is a bad man who behaves badly and he needs to be looked at. It's your job. And it's starting to finally begin to penetrate, I think, the mainstream media all across the board. And by the way, if the mainstream media wakes up to what this guy actually is and starts doing their job for the first time ever, this second term of Barack Obama is going to be the biggest catastrophe in American presidential history.
Richard Milhouse, James Earl, Carter, Obama. We can just go on with that. Scott, Alex Koppelman at The New Yorker, and I'm sticking with left-wing sources here because there's just no excitement to be had really when National Review or the Daily Caller gets it right. Anyway, Koppelman slammed White House press weasel Jay Carney. He wrote, again, this is a quote, he's playing semantic games telling a room full of journalists that the definition of editing we've all been using is wrong, that the only thing that matters is who's actually working the keyboard. Scott, is Carney going to be the next member of this administration suddenly finding himself staring at the underside of a bus?
Well, absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, somebody has to go, somebody has to be removed in order to distract from this devastating scandal. And frankly, if you think through the whole Benghazi thing, starting from early last year all the way through till now, there's almost nothing exculpatory for the Obama administration. There's nothing to excuse the behavior at any level. But the real tragedy here isn't what it says about President Obama, and it isn't that the fact that the mainstream media has been asleep at the switch so long and maybe finally is waking up. The problem here is that an American ambassador is dead, that Navy SEALs are dead, that our people on our sovereign territory in another country are dead, and the message we've just sent to Ansar al-Sharia and al-Qaeda is, it's okay, we can cover this up, there's going to be no blowback, there's going to be no strike back, keep doing it with impunity.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a message. Bill?
I was just going to say, that's exactly right. Where's the justice? Where's the retribution? Where's the counterstrike? Where's the raid? Where's the investigation? My understanding from a member of Congress, from Congressman Gomer from Texas, was that the consulate site was left unsecured for 30 days. 30 days. There were documents lying on the ground in the middle of all this blood that people would just walk in and pick up. This isn't incompetence. This is something on a whole nother level.
And so that's an entirely new kind of cover-up. We've never seen this kind before. And regarding Carney, a fish rots from the head down, but Jay Carney is a little bit lower than that. All right, Bill, not all the reporting is what we might have hoped even at this point. Over at Politico, of course Politico, Jake Sherman and Lawrence French finally reported the story on Monday, but they covered it like it was just another Washington scandal, which the GOP is just as culpable for somehow, because, they want to uncover it. This is the kind of thing Sherman and French should have been doing last September, really. But aren't the cover-up days over now?
Well, you know, Steve, if you put a bunch of people on a 100-yard dash, even the slowest runners will cross the line eventually. It may take them weeks or days longer than people who can run at a normal speed, but even the slowest of the slow will eventually cross the line if you give them enough time. If Politico is talking about the scandal, even if they're talking about it as just another right-wing talking point scandal, the fact that they're talking about it means that this story is going to stick. And that's the main thing. And by the way, I don't mean to change topics, but you know, the one thing I will say about the press is this. Fast and Furious, maybe 1,000 Mexicans dead, 300 certainly, couple agents. It's nothing, it's a right-wing talking point. Benghazi, it's Fox News, you know how they are, it's just a political thing. But when it's revealed, and the IRS intimidation of conservative groups, well, you know, it probably didn't happen. But when the White House and the Justice Department start tapping the phones of reporters, suddenly these guys have actual skin in the game. And of all the mistakes this administration has made, that may be the fatal one.
Yep, and I'm calling dibs on that story next week. Scott, CNN's doing it too, of course. David Rothkopf reported on Friday that Darrell Issa's real target in those hearings is Hillary Clinton and her presumed presidential run in 2016. So I guess he's saying that Republicans don't really care about 4 dead Americans, you know, the ones the Democrats got killed. Is shameful a strong enough word for that kind of so-called reporting?
Well, this is deflection to avoid direct denial when you know the direct denial would be false and would be found out. And so what we've got to do is not deal with the substance of the matter and the question at issue here, the reason why the hearings are being held, but we need to deal with the motives that we imagine, that we in the left media imagine that these Republicans must be pursuing this for. And frankly, sometimes I don't blame them, because most of the time when Congress holds hearings, it's just an opportunity for showboating and politics and parading around and preening and trying to get some time on TV that you otherwise wouldn't get because you're a boring old geezer who should have retired years ago. But in this case, we've actually got a substantial issue, and the left is trying to do everything it can to rally the wagons around Mrs. Clinton, to protect their baby for the 2016 election. And what they're going to miss here is an opportunity to demonstrate integrity by standing up and saying, we stand for American sovereignty, we stand for protecting our people, and we need to get to the bottom of this.
Demonstrate integrity. You are delightfully old-fashioned sometimes, Scott. All right, folks, we have to finish up today by doing something just a little bit different. I need to give a big shout-out to ABC News Chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl. He's the guy who did the real reporting, who revealed the 12 edits the administration made last September to the Benghazi talking points. Those edits, his story, they proved that it was the administration that turned a tragedy into a scandal, that it was this administration that was playing politics over 4 dead Americans right from the start while that consulate was still on fire. Now, other reporters may obfuscate or deny, but after Karl's report, they can no longer ignore it. Good job, Jonathan. Thank you, sir. For PJTV, I'm Steve Green.